Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa, an expert on nothing, which gives me all the credentials to report on news issues and matters that affect all Americans. Today, October 8th, 2026. This will be episode, I think, 47. You can take a look here. This is a conservative-leaning podcast. I welcome 48. This is a conservative-leaning podcast, but I do take in facts on both sides, and if it makes sense, it makes sense. And most of the things that are going on that the Republican Party and politicians are doing make sense. Not all of it. Not saying all of it. But what's going on right now, that affects all of us. Of course, the big news today is the ceasefire in the war with Iran. And this is an American ceasefire and Iranian ceasefire. Does not mean that Israel cannot strike Lebanon, which they have. And I don't even know if it means that Israel can't strike Iran. Don't know. Full details are still a little murky, but Iran has agreed to President Trump's demand of reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And this is a huge win for President Trump because Iran just the other day said they wouldn't do this. I do not believe that the ceasefire will hold. The government, or what is left of the government in Iran, is now being run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and they're not going to give up any power. That's not going to happen. Now, could there be some dealings with some generals there for an understanding? Yeah, but you're talking about a hardcore group of people. And I just don't see that relationship happening. Iran cannot be trusted. No one in the Middle East can be trusted. No one. So I don't know what this buys us other than we can get more assets into the area. But now, President Trump, under the Presidential War Power Act, he's going to be limited. So is this a win for President Trump? I think it is. I think President Trump can take a victory lap here. But in the end, unless there is truly a fundamental shift in Iranian external political policies, it's just going to be business as usual. Iran is the world number one supporter of terrorism, and it exports it more than it does oil. I think that the last 47 years, Iran has been allowed way too much leeway in world policies. But there was never a president in the United States who would do anything about it. And then that includes Republican presidents. I'm not going to say that, this is all the Democrats. This is, been our government's failure in protecting the area. But, were we going to protect, at the time, protect the people that hurt us economically? Saudi Arabia, Libya, Kuwait, all these countries who, remember, held back their oil from us, who held us hostage with oil. So were you going to reward them, even though they all knew a strong, dominant Iran would only hurt them? But they didn't care. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's a craziness of the political system in the Middle East. What is amazing to me right now is that the liberal media's just refusal to acknowledge. If you go on their websites, very little about the ceasefire, very little about the president's success in getting that ceasefire under the terms that we dictated. Nothing. And yet you have the representative from Minnesota, Omar, has demanded the impeachment of President Trump, the invokement of the 25th Amendment, and that Donald Trump be removed physically from the White House. The sheer panic of her language and what she's saying, she is in 100% panic mode. Her days in political office are numbered. There's big investigations that she lied multiple times on federal forms. And she will be scrutinized. And I don't like the idea of them just scrutinizing politicians who aren't in line with the administration that's serving at the time. I don't like that. But there has been proof that she misrepresented herself in coming to America. And in some other areas that could get her into trouble. So Omar, I hope, gets kicked out of office. That's my personal feeling on her. And it was the same thing with Schiff and his falsifying records with his mortgage application. But at least with Schiff, I can get to the point to say that if he is a senator, he has to be in the Washington, D.C. area, and he also lives in California. He splits his time, and he wanted a home, and that was going to be his primary residency while living in or being in the Washington, D.C. area. I can get there. I can get there. I can say, I don't think that's a violation of anything. I think if the banks didn't question him on it, no one questioned him on, hey, full time or 51% of the time, do you give up your residency in California for there? I don't know if he has to. He's a representative. He's a senator. And not that he gets any special dispensation, but it is different than me. So I didn't like that they went after him for that. Now, look, Letitia James from New York, she outright lied on every one of her applications. And she had a pattern of doing that. And she should be charged. Absolutely, she should be charged. She was elected to be in New York and not have her residency in Virginia. So she lied. She knew she was lying. Big difference between that and Schiff. I don't like Schiff at all. I don't like his politics. I don't like his demeanor. I don't like his style. But did he do anything with a criminal intent? No. No, he did not. To me. All right. But the other big news to me is that a federal judge approved the Trump administration holding back Medicaid funds to the state of Minneapolis while it is investigating the massive fraud of the program there and handling by the state. And Minnesota went to court to fight that. And they've lost it according to, where they stand right now. They could take that up the ladder, and I'm sure they will, but as of right now, it stands. So I apologize, my cold is getting better, but it gets better and then comes back. So, of course, with the ceasefire, the stock market has exploded. It's already up. As of a half hour ago, it was up over 2.5%. Oil prices are plunging. And of course, this will be a roller coaster because the minute there's a problem with the ceasefire, it's just going to be bouncing all over the place. This isn't like with the stock market. This isn't what they call a dead cat bounce type thing. So we'll see what happens with that in the immediate future. Republicans, have gotten the funding with temporary funding for ICE and border security, while the Democrats got nothing from their using federal employees as a pawn for the budget. And again, everything that has been done has just been a temporary bridge. And I think the American public is getting tired of the Democrats holding everyone hostage. And they're going to have to make some type of concession. Schumer is going to look silly. Jeffries is, Jeffries already looks silly. Schumer's. They're trying to get rid of all him. Cory Booker wants Jeffries out. He wants a change of the Democratic leadership. There's a bunch of problems going on in the House of Representatives. I don't know how much going on with Schumer, but Schumer has definitely his shininess has dulled considerably. Again, the news media, the liberal news media, hardly covering the ceasefire. And when they talk about Donald Trump, they talk about him as, he conceded, he capitulated to Iran, and just touting how great Iran is. All the news is showing protests, in support of the Iranian government. How can anyone in their right mind support a government like in Iran that is just killing thousands of its own people, has murdered millions, have toppled legitimate regimes? No, I'm sorry, Democrats. You are going even further left. You were left before. Now you're doubling down and going further left. I can't see how that is a good thing coming up in November. I think the Democrats are going to have a very hard time. And again, just like the Republicans have their diehard 28%, Democrats have their hardcore 28%. But I think moderates are going to, it's not going to be, the 3%, we're going after these people. I think that moderate Democrats are going to say, I just can't, I can't continue with this. And I think that a lot of these politicians that are running know this and will distance themselves from senators and representatives, when they're running for state positions, state Democrats in legislation. I think it's going to be very hard, even there, for some of these people in contested states. But I think as far as overall wise, I see a red sweep again, and then just a war by the Democrats who will fight no matter what. If it hurts America, they don't care. They're just more upset that they've lost their power base. So we'll see what happens. All right, I've been talking about that for close to 18 minutes. But I think it needs to be discussed. What is the plan for Iran if there is a regime change? How is that going to be handled? Are we going to have a presence there to say, this is how we'd like you to go? I realize that is the wish, but that's not, wishes hardly ever come true. So how are you going to take a new fledgling moderate Iran and keep it moderate, keep them autonomous, where it's not, they can't go to the people. See, it's being controlled by the Jews and Americans, it is very hard to do that. There's 90 million Iraqis. Iraqis a huge nation. They're of that area. They're probably pretty educated in certain things, and a lot better strategically set up than a lot of the nations over there. But what is the plan? We win. What's the plan? It's the old saying: you can win the war. Now, how do you win the peace? I think there'll be just so much, homegrown terrorist actions inside there. You don't want to create different states inside Iran, because now it just festers. Do the Kurds want a piece of it? Do the Sunnis, the Shiites? You end up in a very bad situation, and you've now, where Iran was one enemy, now you could have three enemies over there that combine, and you're back to what you were dealing with. Who's going to control the oil? How's it going to be, controlled? How is the money going to get back to the people and not go into rockets? I need a plan. I'd like to see a plan. So, I don't mind if a liberal news media goes out and places legitimate questions and that they want to see. That is absolutely a must. And I have no problem with that. Where I have the big problem with the media is, the lies. The lies. The innuendos with, we're not at liberty to say. That person who is speaking is not authorized to speak. That's not the way news should be presented. And I think there's a lot of growing up to do for the news that should have been there. So, but you're having a lot of people that can do this, that can reach audiences that you could never reach before. Yes, I was allowed to sit on my soapbox in front of my house or in a public place and, spew whatever I'm spewing. And people could come by and go, kook. Keep walking, don't make eye contact with him. And that's it. But now we have the ability to reach out and have our opinions, good or bad, pushed out there. Of course, no one is forced to watch anything. But it's still where I have a few hundred subscribers. And if you like this, please subscribe. If you don't like it, you should subscribe anyway, just to leave negative comments. But that's more people than I could ever hit before and have an impact on. So, but I think the media should be presenting truthful. And if you're going to have an opinion-based, and this is an opinion-based, I'm not going out there and finding hard news. It's an opinion-based show. Then you should at least get some facts out there that are correct. And Bob in New York, I wish you would do that too. Get your facts. So stop going with emotion. All right. That's the stuff that's going on today in the news. But on the financial side, we're going to see, hooray, great, oil's flowing. And you're going to see a lot of fluctuations with that. But I think the main thing that we have to take, and we can agree, all should be able to agree upon it, is that a degraded Iran is just good for the whole world and region. You could have Israel still attacking Hutus. You could have Israel and the United States still doing that. You could have Israel fighting in Lebanon. In Gaza. They still have threats against them other than Iran. Iran was feeding all these countries, all these terrorist groups inside these countries, billions. Billions. And the idea of chopping the snake's head off and then the body dies, that's all right if you can do it. There's probably still billions stashed around that these groups can use. But if you start now going after the people that they could supply with, China, India, Europe, where they can buy weaponry, though I think that they have found out that the weaponry that they've been buying, and top notch, is like you going and buying parts from Temu. They look the same, they do everything, but they're not the same. Some interesting, if you're interested in things like that, interesting YouTube channels where they take apart weaponry. And yes, simple is good, and but some of it's not really that good, and that's why they have an 18 or 22% failure rate in their weaponry. But if they could build 22 of them for the price of one super elite that has a 90% chance of hitting, but I could build 22 that are all right, and 20% of those will get through. Well, take a look at your dollar cost and your performance, and where one might get through. Now, if I shoot 24 get through, well, do the math. So cheap doesn't necessarily mean that it won't work. In a lot of these parts, it's a one-way mission anyway. This is not going to be continual, flying. Where you have to have, 100% reliability on a part continuously. That's why these parts, like for airplanes and parts for the missiles and everything, they have to be good. Mostly an airplane because, how many cycles? Up and down. So it has to last. Has to be dependable. The failure rate has to be factored into it. And a lot of the parts coming out of China in these markets and other places, they just don't stand up. They'll work a few times and then that's it. But again, if you're talking mass production at a much more reduced cost, that will work. Technology is getting better. The technology in the parts are getting better. You could just see it. Go to any remote control, model remote control thing on YouTube and see what these people can build using parts off the shelves. Great example was the Russian spy balloon that, Biden tried to say it didn't exist, and then it existed, and then no, it's nothing to worry about, and then we capture it and go, yeah, there's a lot of data in there, but they were using off-the-shelf parts, made that thing for a few $100,000 instead of spending $380 million on a satellite. They could build 200 of those balloons, 300 of the balloons, still get the same data that they would have gotten. So technology is a big plus, but then also a huge headache to combat. So, all right, 30 minutes on that. The Democrats are in big trouble in the House. They're going to have a very hard time explaining to voters exactly why they shut the government down and why they inconvenienced American flyers and cost airlines billions of revenue that they can't get back quickly. And it's going to be very hard for them to explain this. And you know that the GOP will take advantage of that, as they should. It's an advantage that was handed to them. Why not take it? It'll be very hard for them to give a true answer, one that can stand up to scrutiny. So I can't see much help for the Democrats that are going to try to use that as a means to say, hey, we fought, because it needed to be fought. They're going to get beat up on voter ID. That their base is demanding. They're going to get caught up in fraud. These are all presentable things. This is not an innuendo. This isn't that guy visited Epstein Island. These are facts. We have the numbers and everything right here. It's going to be hard for the Democrats to navigate that. And they could turn around and go, well, they're just using that as a means to, yeah, but it's facts. And even a lot of Democrats are looking at, I don't want to hear, but whataboutism. What about that guy? What about, they're going to want answers. And I think that if the Republicans get the coaching they need to take full advantage of that, and let the GOP coach all these senators and Congress people to how to navigate the minefield. And I apologize for the noises you're hearing here, but after numerous operations, those are the noises I'm going to make. So, sorry. The GOP must take full advantage. And let's not get played, into the Epstein files or anything like that. We have enough evidence out there and ammunition to combat the Epstein files. We have dollars and cents. Epstein files don't hurt my pocketbook, doesn't change the price of gas or food, does nothing of that. but all the recklessness of the Democrats can be shown to hurt people in their pocketbooks. Blue people, red people, unidentified people. So it is out there. It should be used. It should be harnessed. You can call that weaponization. I'm just saying that's facts. Explain why you did this. Explain why your party is supporting that. Why are you supporting it or you don't support your party? And I think that's how the GOP is going to win, is that the Democrats have given them enough ammunition to, halt. And they could say, we have a president acting illegally. No, because everything's going through the Supreme Court. And the things that the president was not allowed to do was stopped. The things that the Supreme Court said he could do, he did. And you could say, well, it's a rigged court. Wasn't rigged when the Democrats were there, right? So this is the idea, and this is where the GOP really has to educate not only their moderate base, but moderate Democrats, to say, this is what they're not telling you. This is why the president could do it, or this is why a judge ruled against the president. This is why a judge ruled for a president. This is why the Supreme Court went down this path. And you see, the Democrats win a huge thing in their state against, abortion bills. Well, that's the way it should be. You elect people that are the highest part of your agenda. This is the most important part of your agenda. Then you elect people, and if that person gets elected, you hold them to what they said they were going to do. And abortion should have always been a state rights issue. Period. And, you had the Democrats saying Trump's against abortion. No, he wasn't. He said there was no place for the federal authorities to be telling you yes or no. It's a state right. And, and he even said, he goes, right now you're saying, I'm against it. And I'm not, because you could then have some federal people get up there and go, no abortions anyway. It's not protect, as a matter of fact, you can't have them. And, Trump is saying, no, that's not the case. Let the states decide. And the states did do that years and years and years ago, knowing that it wasn't going to be protected. And they had to do it. They had to act proactively if they were going to have a policy on such. And that's why, for the most part, no one was really affected. There were some states that then said, hey, if it's in our thing, we all approve it. We make legislation. These are the only reasons you can have abortion. And it went from reasons like this to reasons like that. Yeah. You could be affected. And then what you need to do is get people elected that will take it from here and put it back to that. That's all. That's all you need to do. you have the Democrats being so weak on the crime that's happening being done by illegals, and it's hard to wrap your head around it. To say, well, we're protecting everyone. By protecting them, we're protecting, no. Because I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't need, I have that protection, as a citizen. But yeah, you've had illegals that were removed multiple times and have come back and then do some heinous crimes. And it's going to be hard for the Democrats to say, yes, this is, by me saying, don't deport anyone, I'm saying keep that criminal here. And then they turn around and go, well, we could put them in prison. Yeah, we could. We're not. It's not happening. And then I have to pay the burden of that, of people that shouldn't have been here in the first place. You want rules for people that should never have been here in the first place. This isn't the chicken and the egg. This is the gate is left open and the horses came in that should not have been there. So it's going to be hard for the Democrats to reconcile that. And, you have people out there that anyone comes here and, I can understand people questioning, they're going, Trump can't stop the, 14th Amendment. And you try to explain to them what Trump is really trying to do. And this was not set up to do what's taking place. And it should be challenged. And if the Supreme Court agrees with the words that are here, and meaning exactly what those words are printed, then you know what? Then okay, that's the way it is. But I think the argument that the Trump administration is making is solid. Is solid. And the intent of the 14th Amendment right here, and then how that amendment is being applied, that's the key. That's the key. Sovereignty and jurisdiction. Personally, I think it's going to be a 5-4 in favor of what Trump is saying. At best, 6-3. At worst, 6-3 against Trump. But I think that there's a lot of talking points that need to be clarified. Because remember, the words that we use every day have a different meaning inside the Constitution. And that meaning goes to the fundamental intent of the Constitution and really what it was and why. And they go, well, they voted before with it. Well, the Supreme Court has reversed many, many decisions that they have made in the past. Hundreds of decisions have been reversed on the Supreme Court. Now, Supreme Court does not have an appeal process. When the words are spoken, the deed is done, let it go out through the land. But there, you can go back and challenge. Not the next day, that's not going to happen. They won't hear it. But years down the road, it can be taken back and challenged. And there have been cases where the court has said, we uphold whatever that decision that court made back then. Solid. And when they are pressed for an opinion on it, their other reasoning can be, we're just not going to hear the case. It's so fundamentally simple that we're not going to waste our time. If it went to the Supreme Court, then it is, and they say kick it back to a lower court, when then somewhere in the lower courts need to look at it and come up and say, okay, we looked at it again, and all right, we'll go this way, or they uphold it. And if they uphold it, that's it. If the Supreme Court's not going to hear it, that ruling stands. And that's the end of it. Because if the Supreme Court won't hear it, and if it's so urgent, then it goes into the shadow dockets, and not crazy about that, but the business of the United States must keep going. So I do understand that. All right, this has been over 45 minutes of this. Please, again, I need subscribers. I like subscribers. I like comments. Comments. I try not to be sensational, and put out stuff that is like wacky stuff. But wacky stuff on the search things is what gets people eyeballs. I don't like doing that. So I'd like people to generally either like the show or dislike it and let me know. All right, everyone, please give to a registered charity if you can. If you're uncomfortable doing that, I can certainly understand that you don't want to be a victim trying to help victims. Perfectly understandable. Please give to a local food bank then. Food banks always need supplies and whatever they can take. They also can use monetary donations, because then they can pinpoint exactly where they're having issues with that day. And by helping a food bank in your area, you're actually seeing action take place where you live. And I just ask that you do not look at it with a prejudice where you go, well, those people put themselves in that problem in a situation. Could be absolutely correct with that. But if there's children involved, those children didn't do that. And they're the ones that might not be getting a meal. Think about it that way. Say a prayer. Prayer does work no matter what a Democrat might tell you. All right, with that, I'm going to say thank you. Everyone be safe, be well. I probably will have another show out this evening sometime as I get more information on what's going on with the ceasefire, and there's more news being dumped on us. So I can give my opinions. My show, Bob, my opinions. I'm only kidding. Bob in New York. All right, with that, I'm going to say thank you as I fade to